Today I'm going to be showing you guys how I sketch and do my line art today. It's not going to be the best line art example, but I will show you kind of what I do. But in the meantime, here's a more cleaner version of what my line art actually is. Still a little rough, but that's because I render over it. But yeah, I'll show you how to get this sort of look if you were interested. We have my rough sketch that I did, but it didn't start out like this initially. It actually looked a lot different than what we have on the screen right now, and I will bring that up for you. So I'll just annotate this is the rough sketch, and now I'm going to show you what I started with even before I got to this stage, so you guys can have an idea of what the process is for me. Here is the sketch. So it looks very different and it looks really messy, but I think that's something that we're all afraid of, and that is to be messy and actually sketch. And when I mean sketching, I really mean to sketch. So I use the round brush. This one is pen pressure sensitive, so I can go really light and I can go really heavy, and I could do bold strokes and I could do faint strokes. So I like this one the most. It offers variation with the brush, but it also keeps it simple, and I don't have to worry about texturing or anything like that. Just a plain simple brush. And I use the same brush for my rough sketches, and I also use this exact same brush again for the line art. To first off gather references, and don't be shy with gathering references. Gather from any source you can and have multiple references to look at, not just one pose. Have many different poses, and also have yourself as a reference. Like, we can do mirrors, photos, or even just in real life looking in front of you. And definitely I like to just keep it loose. I like to keep my hand loose here. I don't tighten up my hand at this stage, because the more fluid your lines are, and as long as you could read the sketch somewhat, it will really favor you onto the next sketch, which is the rough sketch. I will say this is the most important part, because it's the middle bridge between your sketch and your line art. So this really determines the outcome of the piece. So we're putting our effort into the sketch, maybe about 50%. Got the rough sketch, I will say put about 80% of your work here. And then line art is literally the 10%, because we've already established everything within these two stages. We've already built our foundation of sketch, the rough sketch, and to top it all off, we have the line art. So if we have a good sketch, we can then do a really good rough sketch, and then we can clean it up with some line art. And the line art doesn't have to be super clean, so you don't make line art complicated. Make it easy for yourself. So that's how I like to think about it. So the rough sketch, as you can see, it is very, very clear. I could already make out a couple lines that I probably only need to go over once or twice in the line art stage. So this is why it's so important. So don't worry if things look a little off. So just get those shapes in, get these little guidelines in, and then it makes it a whole lot easier going forward into your line art. If you have these clear for yourself, or clear enough, legible enough for yourself, you will have no problems. And that's exactly how I like to draw. I like to imagine everything as shapes. I don't like to overcomplicate it because drawing is already complicated as it is. I like to make it as simple as possible and as legible as possible for myself, because I have always struggled with line art until I started doing this. Until I started just trying to draw smarter. And now that I see everything in shapes and I work with shapes, I let the shapes work for me, everything becomes so much easier. I'm able to identify what to do and how to do it without overcomplicating it for myself. And now I don't hold myself so accountable if this line, for example, looks like this, because I'm gonna go over it. I'm not gonna worry and zoom in so close to the picture because I'm not gonna see it. No one's gonna know. So that's exactly how I take this process. So once you've established your sketch and your rough sketch, we can move on to that last 10%. And that's your line art. I guess some tips and things that I just prefer to do, I guess for my style, and I guess a lot of other people. I love to have clear lines, but not necessarily clean. As long as it's legible and the fill tool can take it, I'm gonna go with it. And I guess some stylistic choices here. I just like to have some boldness and line variation towards the face. I quite like having that as a focal point. And I like having slight boldness in the shoulders towards the chest. Again, bringing the attention back to the face, because that is my favorite part. I feel like that reveals a lot about a character. And usually the lighter lines are towards the bottom of the picture, but most of the darker lines are towards the center, leading back up to the face. So you can play around with it and see what works for you, and see what effects these techniques give.